Here's where I see so many people going wrong when they're building custom GPTs, my friends, and it's just two very simple words: knowledge docs. Look, if you're building custom GPTs, they're not working the way that you thought they were going to. The responses and the outputs are vague. Maybe it's not consistent. It's most likely because your knowledge documents are not set up for maximum results inside of your instructions. So in this video, I want to talk about the 3 key ways to make your knowledge docs really work for you, work better for your custom GPTs, which means they're going to work better for the end user, either yourself or your clients, your students, whoever is using your GPTs. And I'm also going to tell you some of the biggest mistakes I see people making, so be sure to stick around to the end. And by the way, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Wendy. I am an AI strategist and custom GPT coach, and I work with seasoned women, online coaches, course creators, service providers to help them build, launch, and monetize custom GPTs into their own programs and offers so that they can sell more and scale faster with less work. Okay, so let's dive into what's really happening with your custom GPTs being kind of like wackadoodle, not really following the directions all the time, and certainly not being consistent, and how you can also make them sound more like you if that's what you want to do. Okay, the 3 ways to make your custom GPTs better just by using knowledge documents the right way, and some of those key mistakes that I have seen people make. Now, before we get started, I want to kind of give you the lay of the land of what knowledge docs are inside of a custom GPT. And I'm going to give you the specific example if you're building custom GPTs directly inside of ChatGPT. But just know that whether you're using ChatGPT, whether you're using a tool like Pickaxe or Rad Genius, some of my favorites, you can still use knowledge docs, and you can still use knowledge docs properly or make the same mistake. Okay, so the first thing to note is that if you are building your custom GPTs inside of ChatGPT, which is my still favorite place to build them, is you have a limit of 20 documents that you can upload, okay? So 20 docs per custom GPT. Now, here are some of the file limitations that I want to tell you about. Each file needs to be a maximum of 512 megs. That's half a gig, so that's pretty dang big. The other thing to note about these files is that they can't exceed 2 million tokens. Now, tokens, what the heck is a token, right? Well, 2 million tokens is about 1.5 to 2 million words, give or take, tokens. And no one totally knows how to calculate tokens, but that's kind of what it kind of boils down to. Now, there are a few exceptions, and that is spreadsheets are exempt from the token cap. So if you are uploading spreadsheets and you're making more custom GPTs that are a little more complex, or doing some calculations, or you're using spreadsheet data, then you don't have that token limit, okay? So that's something to think about. The other thing to note is that overall in your ChatGPT account, if you are on the Plus account, which is the $20 a month account, not to be confused with the Pro account, which is $200 a month, you have a max limit of 10 gigs for all of your files, okay? So keep that in mind. However, if you upload your documents properly, hitting 10 gigs is not going to be something that you're going to need to worry about. Okay, so just for reference, let me just show you where you're going to upload knowledge docs in your custom GPT. So where you add in or where you configure your custom GPTs, right here where it says knowledge, you're going to click this uploads file button, and this is where you're going to be able to upload all of your files. So now that we have that out of the way, you know how many you can upload, you know how the size limitations of them, and you know where to put them. Now it's time to dive into some of the mistakes that I see people making. Okay, so the first way to make your custom GPT stronger and more predictable is stop uploading unstructured, ugly, messy knowledge docs, okay? Take a little bit of time in a Google Doc or in a Google spreadsheet and make them so that they make sense to you. Use headers. Use H1s, H2s, H3s. That is actually going to help the custom GPT read your knowledge docs. If you just upload a bunch of files and they're all just random text and there's no rhyme or reason, the GPT, number one, is going to take longer for it to decipher that information. And now that we have AI, people are expecting that fast, like, in a blink of an eye type of response, right? So make sure that you structure them and don't try to shove everything into one document. Again, you have 20 docs. So think about ahead of time what types of knowledge docs you're going to need to really make your custom GPT work properly, and then plan accordingly, right? Maybe you want to create 3 or 4 knowledge docs. Maybe you do need 10. The more that you use, the more that you need to make sure that they are structured properly so that the GPT can find them. Now, the other thing to note about structured and unstructured documents is the type of files that you're uploading. Yes, you can upload spreadsheets, you can upload documents, you can upload PDFs, and you can upload markdown files. And this is the .md file. This is the best type of file. If you're going to create a document, or you have a PDF or something, or you're thinking of outputting a document as a PDF, I'm going to stop you right there. It is so much easier for a custom GPT to read a markdown file, which is actually translated to a computer reading language that it can understand and parse through so much quicker. So for instance, if you've got a Google Doc and you've been smart and you've added headlines, right? You've used headers, headline 1s, headline 2s, and you've organized the document. And then when you go to output it, instead of outputting it as a doc or a PDF, go down to the very bottom where you output the Google Doc and output as Markdown, the .md, and use those types of files. Those types of files are also much smaller than if you upload a big ass PDF to it and it's got a lot of extra big images and it's outputted at a large file size, right? Because PDFs are known to do that. When you use a markdown file, not only is it easier for the GPT to read through, the file size is going to be much smaller as well. So make sure whenever possible that you are not using PDFs, you are either using documents like a .docx or an MD file or some sort of like XLS spreadsheet file. And that leads me to mistake number 2 that I see a lot of people making, and that is they upload the documents, but they don't tell the instructions of the GPT what to do with the documents. And so that kind of equates to telling somebody a bunch of ingredients that they need for a recipe, but not telling them how to use the ingredients, right? Do I use a cup of flour? Do I use 3 cups of flour? Do I use a teaspoon of baking powder? Do I use a half a cup of baking powder? If you don't have the instructions for the recipe, you're not going to have the recipe come out good. And it's the same thing for your custom GPTs. The instructions need to know how to use the knowledge docs, and that is so important. And the first thing you can do is in your instructions, make sure that you tell the GPT the names of each knowledge doc, and that way you can refer to them and it knows what the knowledge docs do and where to use the knowledge docs. This is so important. It's probably more important to tell the GPT how to use the knowledge docs even than if you upload messy, unstructured documents, right? Because without that knowledge, without that framework and structure, there is no way that the GPT is going to be able to create consistent results. And this is the biggest problem that people have with custom GPTs is they say to me all the time, well, it is not responding right, or one time it responds like this and one time it responds like that. Help, 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 right? And it always goes back to how are you telling the instructions in the GPT to use the knowledge docs accordingly. If you do that, that will solve so many of your consistency problems, I promise you. And just as a side tip there, you could have a knowledge doc that shows examples of what you want your outputs to look like. Sometimes we're so busy giving the knowledge docs a ton of information, we forget to give it examples of what we want our expected outputs to look like. And that can be really powerful, and it can make things go so much easier and for the end users of your custom GPTs when you can pretty much guarantee that the results are going to be, outputted in a way that is easily copied into another Google Doc or used here, used there, right? And so while a GPT is always going to alter the outputs a little bit because, again, it's a generative pre-trained transformer. It's doing predictive work. And so the prediction is always going to be slightly different. Just by creating a custom GPT with the instructions that know how to use your knowledge docs, especially if you can say, hey, make sure to look at this knowledge doc for the output structure. Oh my gosh, you are going to by far make such better custom GPTs. The third thing I see people not doing quite right that can really make a big impact and difference in your custom GPT's performance is, while they may be uploading all their knowledge docs, they're not naming the knowledge docs in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that maybe makes sense to the GPT. And so it's important that you use knowledge docs that aren't called like upload 1, upload 2, but give them a name so that when you reference them in different sections of your instructions, that it's making more sense for yourself and the GPT. Now, this is important for a couple reasons. Number one is it's going to make it a lot easier for you to troubleshoot, tweak, and refine your custom GPTs when the time comes. The other thing is that the GPT isn't going to get confused, and if you ever do need to re-upload a document and you forget to upload the instructions, the name will still be very similar, and sometimes it'll just add like a 1 at the end, but the GPT will still be able to figure out what to do with those file names. So those were the 3 ways to make your custom GPTs better. Now, I want to give you a bonus tip, and that is knowledge documents come in handy a lot, especially if you're creating custom GPTs that are supposed to emulate your coaching style. Make sure that you use knowledge documents that have your coaching style embedded in them and examples of the type of coaching that you provide, be it emails that you've written, responses that you've written to clients, or transcripts, okay? Because that's also going to help your custom GPT get trained on how to respond. Please feel free to grab my 75 plus ways to use custom GPTs to make more money guide. The link is below. It's going to give you so many beautiful ideas for how you can start to integrate custom GPTs and AI into your programs and offers without you having to be an AI expert. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.